You're watching a special broadcast of the 2025 State of the Nation Address. It is taking place under a new government of national unity, and talking about this government of national unity, it does appear to be under a certain measure of scrutiny from the new Trump administration in America. And joining me is the former Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Naledi Pandor. Dr. Pandor, good afternoon to you, and thank you for making time for us. It does feel as though the new American administration is almost going to be a shadow over South Africa in the lead up to this G20 summit. But today is a special day because there is a State of the Nation address that must be delivered by the president. What for you are key priorities that he ought to address?
Well, good afternoon, Dolly, and afternoon to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. I think I'm in broad agreement with a lot of what has been said by many of the analysts and the public that has been interviewed throughout the day. Number one, in my view, is to look at economic growth and really target those matters which keep being mentioned by so many economic analysts. The matter of the structure of our economy and the need to fundamentally change this in order to have a more productive economic outcome in our country. So I think economic growth is key because that will answer many, many of the problems that South Africa has. Secondly, I really think consolidation of all the initiatives directed at employment to ensure that we maximize the potential outcomes. I think the initiatives might be too many and too dispersed, and we need a way of coordinating more effectively to develop a coherent and impactful response. Then, of course, thirdly, we do have many issues of providing public services to the people of our country. So I wish we could again become a building site that would see greater numbers of infrastructure initiatives, a real targeting of informal settlements, and beginning to build decent settlements and homes and communities for the people of South Africa.
Yeah.
Finally, something not many people are talking about. I'm really worried that the National Student Financial Aid Scheme doesn't seem to be able to successfully get out of the problems that have embroiled it for several years. And I really think it's a bubbling problem, somewhat of a tinderbox that should be attended to urgently.
How do you address that very last issue, Minister? As you say, this appears an intractable problem. You have been in the education space before, although not higher education. Talk to us about how you think the NSFAS problems could be resolved.
Well, Goli, firstly, you'll remember I was Minister of Education, which was all sectors.
Yes.
And then my appointment in 2018 was to higher education and training. So I have been in the sector. And I do think that we need to look at all the administrative inadequacies as well as improved utilization of technology. I think a better partnership between institutions of higher learning and the scheme is one way of addressing this. There seems to be somewhat of a separation. Historically, there'd been a much closer link. And I think the scheme needs to look at that. But I'm sure the administrator who has been put in place by the Minister of Higher Education is an extremely competent person. And I hope that he'll be able to speedily address the problems.
I want then to go back to the economy, because that's the first topic that you have raised. And that minister is, should I say former minister, that is predicated in part on this presidency, this G20 presidency of South Africa. Does it feel to you that the United States may have a different agenda to destabilize that? And I'm asking that question, taking advantage of the fact that you are a recent minister of Foreign Affairs, if I could use that language. This morning, we wake up to news that the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, says he is not going to be attending the G20 Summit of Foreign Ministers in Pretoria. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's extremely disappointing and of concern. I hope that our Minister of International Relations is speaking to certainly Secretary Rubio, but broadly the State Department, senior officials through the Director General of our department in South Africa, really to engage and persuade and to inform. I believe there's a lot of wrong perception about our country. We have been and are a good partner to the United States of America, and we need to provide information as to the factual position on all the matters that have been raised thus far, many of which I think have been really misconstrued. So a great deal of diplomatic effort is needed on our part. And we do have friends, by the way, in the United States of America, in both houses. We need to use them. We have friends in civil society. We have chambers of business that are focused on investing in South Africa. We have CEOs of branches of large corporates located in our country. We need to convene them, speak on these issues clearly, get communication out there. I don't think we should allow things to bubble and develop false feet. I really believe a great deal of diplomatic effort should get underway, and I'm sure it already is.
Yeah. South Africa is a sovereign state, Dr. Pandor. That means it's at liberty to either review or introduce new laws in order to address whatever problems it deems necessary. Does it seem to you that is it normal for America to be so interested in South Africa's social and economic transformation policies?
Well, to comment negatively on our policies before examining them closely is the oddity. But to be focused on South Africa is not odd. We're a very important country on the African continent. We're the largest economy. We're a country that has always attracted international commentary and interest. And we shouldn't be surprised at the interest in our country. But what we must ensure is that we remain sovereign, we have an independent foreign policy, and that we're able to engage the international community. We have all the world's media available to us to ensure that there is clarity with respect both to our policies and any other area that may be subject of misconstruing.
Final question, and it's got to be on the continent and the goings-on, particularly in Eastern DRC. There is an upcoming summit of the two regions, SADC and the East African Community. That particular summit, it takes place this weekend, Dr. Pandor, with renewed fighting in Eastern DRC. Should the country be worried about that renewed fighting, particularly given that we have not heard any updates on the repatriation of the fallen soldiers?
Well, I think we're all really very saddened at the loss of 14 of our own brave men and women. And I'm sure government will give us a clear indication as to when the repatriation would happen. And the sooner, the better. I'm very hopeful at the summit. I believe it's long overdue. And I hope that the two regions' leaders will be able to arrive at a solution that allows for a cessation of hostilities and the beginnings of a process toward a permanent peace.
Yeah. That renewed fighting, I'm letting you go, I promise. That renewed fighting, does it make it even more difficult for the warring parties to make a meaningful undertaking at that meeting come this weekend?
I think it adds to the urgency and certainly does add to the complexity. But what our leaders do know on the African continent and what they have committed to is to vigorously affirm peace and security. Whoever and whichever country, whichever leader, whoever they are, their remit in terms of all our deliberations at the African Union and in the regional economic bodies is to seek peace and security for purposes of ensuring that Africa can focus on development. So the fact of conflict must spur urgency in our leaders to find a solution. And I hope out of the summit this weekend may possibly come a summit that would involve all the parties in conflict, and thus the beginnings of a march toward peace.
Dr. Naledi Pandor, thank you very much for your time. Former Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, weighing in on what she thinks ought to be the priorities in this year's State of the Nation address, and of course, the issues of geopolitics.